everyone and welcome back. Welcome to my brand new playlist which is going to talk about the serverless framework. In my earlier playlist, I talked about AWS components like API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, SQS, SNS. That was like manually going through the Lambda code and doing all the changes. Now we are talking about automating the deployment of Lambda, testing the Lambda code offline. All these things we can do with the help of serverless framework. It's like an independent framework, nothing to do with any cloud. But yes, serverless we are going to use with particular cloud vendor. Like here we are going to talk about serverless with AWS, right? So why we need serverless? All these questions we will start exploring, right? So serverless is a framework which can work with any cloud vendor. We will be targeting AWS. Earlier we did how we were creating Lambda is like uploading the zip file or manually going and writing the code and then deploying it. But all that is going to be automated. Even you don't need to create API gateway, any cloud formation resources. Everything will be done by the serverless framework. What you need to do is write the configuration and tell your Lambda, tell your serverless configuration that okay, this is the handler and this is the endpoint and these are the events I'm going to create. Okay, so this course is divided into the multiple sections. First, we will talk about why we need the serverless framework in our stack, why we should learn it if we are writing the serverless applications, first of all. Second thing is we'll talk about serverless CLI, what all different options are there, how to create a serverless viable configurations to deploy your basic Lambda, and what all things you can put in the serverless.yml configurations, the resource, the handlers, right? All the AWS configuration, like in which particular region you are deploying your Lambda, what is your AWS profile and all these things. And then we'll talk about Lambdas with real world examples, like Lambda talking to SQS, SNS, and Lambda triggers, like there is a Lambda which gets triggered when you do a file upload or when you do a message post onto SQS. Okay, then we will do some real world applications, maybe a simple REST application, REST APIs for your backend, because Lambdas are nothing but function as a service. So we will be writing these functions and exposing the REST API. Then most important thing is testing these Lambdas offline. So there is a serverless offline plugins. We are going to talk about testing it offline and then integrating the whole thing with the CI/CD pipeline. So we don't need to do any manual thing. We just focus on writing the Lambda function on my local system. When I do just SLS deploy, everything is getting taken care either through the pipeline or either through my commit and my PRs. Okay, so let's get started on this. Hi everyone. So in this video, let's talk about serverless framework and Lambda. So first of all, this question arises, okay, why we need Lambda? We already have like the EC2 instance, Fargate and all these things to deploy our application. It is simple as the virtual machine we are getting from either Azure or from AWS, right? The only disadvantage there is they have the limited resources. They will keep running 24/7 when your application is up. And these are like VM in the cloud, right? We have to manage those resources, like the patching of resources, patching of the operating system, taking care of the security and access controls of those systems, right, on the cloud. But what about Lambda? First of all, the use case is different. Not every application which you are writing through the Lambda can be compatible with the VM based deployment, right? So here we need to understand the case why we should move to the serverless. Not every application we should try and just try to move to serverless. There are particular use case, okay, when you don't want to manage the infrastructure, then you should go to the serverless. When your application is not running 24/7 and consuming resources, then you should go for serverless. I mean, I'm writing some service which will run once in a day or once in a week. It's like a batch job, right? So for that, why should I run this process on the EC2 instance or maybe on the VM on the Azure? Because if that process is running, that is consuming resource and you are getting charged for it. But Lambda, you are getting charged for the request which you are making, because when the Lambda gets triggered, then only the Lambda environment is getting invoked and resources are getting consumed. Lambda is supported by all languages. It's like an event driven function and can be called as a function as a service, because we are focused more on the functions, not on the security patching and managing the infrastructure, managing the system, managing the VM, right? It scales automatically. That's the AWS managed service, right? We can easily monitor it using the CloudWatch. Clean and nice integration with the other services, like if we talk about the SQS, S3, Gateway, DynamoDB. So the whole serverless environment is already set up. It's like now you can write your function and can do a lot of things. You need MongoDB, you need Dynamo, you can interface the API gateway either to the Lambda or either to some HTTP service, right? So whole environment is already there. If there is a need, if you see the use case of using serverless, then you should go for it, right? So this is a stack. DynamoDB, you should have a knowledge of IAM, API gateway, and Lambda, and it has a good integration with all these other services. So I mean, if I'm writing something in the Lambda, I want batch processing, need to do read write on that MySQL, need to do read write on the MongoDB or Dynamo. It is providing integration. Lambda is nothing but a Node.js or Python code which can do anything with like any other application is doing, right? So we'll do a lot of demos can be a simple file upload to S3 or resize S3. Lambda will resize it and upload it to S3 again. There can be asynchronous Lambda, like you push some message to the SQS, it will do a Lambda trigger and SQS will message that to somewhere else and Lambda will listen to that. Simple use cases, you have a API gateway, you have a Lambda, DynamoDB or a MongoDB. Then we will also talk about serverless framework, offline testing, integration testing, unit testing, and deployment, right? And how you can deploy the serverless REST APIs. Okay, DLQs, if we talk in depth about SQS, Lambda with S3, Lambda with SQS, SNS, these are some of the use cases. Hi everyone, and welcome back. So here we are going in deep about serverless framework. We will talk about what all different commands, how you can set up, how you can actually deploy Lambda from your system. So this is the last slide. After this, we are going to do all hands-on demo. No slides, no theoretical aspects, but just for cover up, like what all things we are targeting, we can just take a look onto these slides. Okay, so first of all, how you can set up serverless is you should have either Node.js, Python, or whatever the programming language you are using. I'm using serverless with Python, so I will install it. So I already have a Node.js installed on my system. The another thing which you need is an admin user. You can create an admin user because we need access key and secret key to create an AWS profile onto the system. Then we will install serverless globally, because this is a command line tool we are going to use. So we can actually configure a serverless, because serverless need to talk to AWS. For that you need to provide an access key and secret key. It will also create a serverless user profile for you. Okay, and then we can start creating the basic Lambda. Either we can create it with the template. SLS create will provide you some basic templates, so you will get some boilerplate code and you can actually deploy it. The boilerplate code is not fancy, but it will help you to understand the initial configuration. Then you can customize it and patch it according to your needs, right? So we are going to run all these commands just right in the next video. Okay, then we will do all these simple commands. SLS deploy, it will deploy your Lambda based on your configuration. SLS invoke, okay, I want to invoke it offline on my local system. SLS deploy, I have written a lot of functions, because you might be deploying 5 Lambda from one serverless configuration. I wanted to invoke a particular one, you provide the function name. You can also check the deployment logs from local. And finally SLS remove, which will remove your Lambda from AWS, right? And this is a basic example of serverless.yml, where I am writing a handler. This is what we were doing in the Lambda also, like handler.hello, and events, like these are the HTTP events. There is a method get associated with this. API hello will call this handler. Similarly, you can actually define a path, different methods, right? So there can be a same path on method post, so it will call this particular handler. Okay, now serverless YAML configuration is not going to be a simple. We will learn lot of things in the serverless configuration, like the VPC settings, environment variables, how to set the memory of for a Lambda, how to set a timeouts for the Lambda. Because if you go into AWS and check the UI, we are providing a lot of configurations of VPC, environment variables, the timeouts, IAM roles, permissions, all these things. So how you can do these things with the serverless configuration.yml? There should be some tags which you need to specify timeouts, memory settings and all. Okay, then we will talk about these real world examples, like creating a simple REST APIs, which will involve Node.js, DynamoDB table, API gateway, Lambda using serverless, and IAM and CloudFormation resources. We will also talk about serverless offline, where you are writing a Lambda and should be able to test it offline on your local system with DynamoDB. Then serverless offline testing with another scenario where you are actually uploading image. There will be a Lambda which will resize it, and then we will put it to S3, and there will be another Lambda which will log the event that this particular image has been resized. Okay, so this is a typical serverless application where front end is exposed through S3 and CloudFront, and from the API gateway, when this front end is exposed, we are actually talking to the API gateway and Lambda is executing your logic and updating the record in the DynamoDB. Cognito, Auth0, Firebase, whatever you can use for your authentication authorization. Okay, so now from the next video, let's install serverless, let's create AWS profile and get started.